This broadcast of Cultural Caravan is paid for by Cultural Caravan Productions Incorporated.
Let's talk, you mentioned about another very special love in your life, which is, we saw the great Professor James Blake, but before he was that,
he was Jimmy Blake.
Jimmy Blake, and you talk about meeting the distinguished, dapper, handsome. Where did you meet him? And tell us a little bit about that meeting that changed your life.
Well, I met him in graduate school at North Carolina College, which is now North Carolina Central University. And I met him the first day I was on campus. And he wanted my phone number. He wanted to know where I lived. I didn't have any of that information. So he thought I was brushing him off. But he was not discouraged. Everywhere I turned, he showed up, so that before you know it, he was a familiar presence in my life. And we became the best of friends. And then, but I was not interested in him. We were just friends. But a posse of women showed up and told me that I did not want to hang out with Jimmy Blake. Because, they weren't very clear about it, except one mumbled something about his being a player. And when I told Jimmy, these women showed up, and he says, "Oh, I used to hang around with them." Well, to this day, he cannot explain to me what hang around with them means. So I'm still seeking an answer to that. And before I knew it, he was helping me write a letter to my fiance saying, "Dear Love," his name was Love, by the way, and the rest is history. We've been married now for 59 years. But I want to say about Jimmy, from the very beginning, he was my number one supporter. Everything was so different then, He went and got online as an undergraduate, and I dined in the graduate dining hall, and we had waiters to wait the tables, and there were these socials that the thesis advisors and the faculty would have with the graduate students. I always brought Jimmy because he was my number one supporter, and he was a part of the love that lifted me, not just in terms of a romantic love, but in terms of my education. He made me a most spontaneous, less logical person, and it was just always a comfort to have him around.
What do you think is some of the ingredients that people should look for when they're considering a long-term love, based on your experience?
Well, I think friendship is important. And I think that the spiritual nature of the person is important. And one of the reasons, you know, and you know, you call that whatever different people say, for me it is something godly. And when I met Jimmy and had my first real conversation with him, I could see this godly spirit in him. And the way it manifested itself was we were walking down Fayetteville Street, and every child who passed, he would give them a pat on the head, or he would say, "Hey, buddy." And I would say, "Ooh, there's something different about this man." So looking for something of substance in the person, and not, for goodness sake, being so desperate to be with someone, but just enjoying the person for who they are. And then if a relationship develops out of that, then good, that's good. But don't go desperately seeking. And so that was the thing about Jimmy. He was a person of substance, and also he took the time to learn about me. And he said, "This is a graduate student, and she's an English major. She probably likes reading books." So I was saying, "Oh, he's a person of substance. He reads." Mm-hmm. And then he, you know, he had other talents. You know, he liked to listen to classical music. So it was all these little things I was beginning to notice about him.
One of the things that you say in your book, you said, you know, you talk about the friendship is really what kept you going. There is not, you're falling in love over and over again. That friendship has left you. You know, it's one thing you talk about romantic love where somebody has this temporary infatuation that kind of dies off. But when you have built that friendship, that just keeps you going. That, you know, that you could be in a room, all you need is Jimmy. Jimmy is that, you and him could be together, and that's all you need. You don't need the world, you just need.
But there were hard times. Mm-hmm. And there were times when I wanted to say, "I'm out of here. You know, I'm leaving." Of course, I had a good mama who would give me good, strong advice. But if I was as sad as I was when I'm thinking about, you know, ending my marriage, it was a pain that I needed to talk to my best friend. I mean, how can I need to talk to my best friend, and I think he needed to do the same thing. And so we would come together and we would try to talk it out. Mm-hmm. Try to talk it out, because who do you go to when something really painful happens? Mm-hmm. You go to your best friend.
Mm-hmm. Now, afterwards you brought four beautiful children, okay? How was it when children became part of your story? That, you know, from 1964, after you and Jimmy consecrated your marriage, and, you know, you had these four little beings. How was that, becoming a mother now, wife and then mother? How did that change things a little?
Well, it changed things a lot. Life became sort of a juggling act. My children and their education and their well-being was a priority for both Jimmy and I, a number one priority. I did all kinds of things. I rose early in the morning and what I call taking my time off the top moments. I made all kinds of schedules. I yearned for an extended family. It was difficult being a mom in New York because I grew up with 69 first cousins. And so what I did was I created an extended family. I started something called Family Day, and we would do it annually, and each child would come from our neighbors and the few friends I had met in New York, and we did that for about 10 years. So I had all of these things that I would do to create the extended family, this community, for my children. But in doing all of that, I never lost sight of Jimmy, and he didn't lose sight of me. We valued our relationship as something separate from the children. And I wasn't thinking ahead and saying, well, okay, one day they'll all be gone. And it's a good thing because they're never all gone. They keep coming back. But we just, always, like I had my me time so that things remained sane. We also had our own time together. So we would go out to dinner. We would go to say, okay, we're having the weekend away, and we would go to Lynbrook, right there, Nassau County, from Queens to Nassau County, things like that, to just keep us in touch with one another. And I think that's what happens with a lot of parents and a lot of couples. They just say, my children and nothing else. Well, my children are important, but I need someone to help me with them. And so. Jimmy.
Yes.
Is my hair okay?
Oh my God, girl, your hair looks
you
good.
Know what?
What?
I'm just asking you because I was thinking about, when we had dinner at that little outdoor cafe, one of those sheds, and the wind got in my hair. And I asked you if it was okay.
Well, darling, when I look at your hair, I see black.
Oh, wow.
I see the girl that I first met. You haven't changed in my eyes, in my mind.
All right.
You're just as fine now as you were then.
You know what?
What?
You're so smooth.
I know. But I wanted to say something about our meeting when I first met you, and I knew that you were going to be my wife, and you didn't know it.
Yeah.
That determination and that drive and that resilience on my part is why we're here today.
Yeah.
Because you were so convinced that you were just in school to get your education and you were engaged. But I became your friend. That's part of the city slicker.
Yeah. And
You become the friend.
and
That's a strategy.
you know what? I could never have imagined we're still romantic after 59 years.
Like I said, darling, I can never imagine being married 59 years. But
here we are.
here we are.
Here we are.
And I
That
can
is such a
say
blessing.
that I didn't just marry a woman, but a woman of substance, a woman who gives back. And your book, Love Lifted Me, is a perfect title because you have lifted so many young women and adults in education, over 10,000 during your journey as dean of a college. And I'm proud to be a part of that. And you've helped me in my community work. There's not a thing that I've done in this community without your hands being on it. So I'm blessed.
Well, thank you. If you were close enough, I'd give you a kiss.
Well, I can get up. Is there room here? I never deny a kiss.
Oh, well.
Never deny a kiss. I got to say something else. About Gwendolyn Brooks. My wife is such a caring person that we were at Penn Station, taking her mother back to Shreveport, Louisiana, putting her on the train. And Bessie says to me, "You see that old woman over there? She's struggling." Well, you said, "You see that woman over there? She's struggling with her suitcase. Go over there and help her." I said, "Really? I don't want her to think I'm trying to take her suitcase." She said, "No, go help that woman." She just insisted. So I went over and I said, "Can I help you?" She said, "No, I'm fine. I said, "Look, let me take this. My wife said I should come over here and help you." So she looked at Bessie and she felt comfortable. So I took her bags, put them, helped her carry them up. And then we came over. I said, "I want to meet my wife." And Bessie said, "Hello, how are you? This is my mother," et cetera. And the woman said, "Well, I'm Gwendolyn Brooks." And that moment was such a moment. Because this is the Gwendolyn Brooks that I knew my wife loved her work, loved her artistry, loved her skill. And for God to make it possible, with all those people at Penn Station, for her to point out Gwendolyn Brooks, to ask me to help her, was love really lifting us. So that was a really tremendous moment.
I reached a point in my development where I wasn't using every single day just to survive. And I was blessed to be in positions where I could give back. And I started as a volunteer with Mrs. Parks, the mother of the Civil Rights Movement, with Gordon Parks, the filmmaker, the Renaissance man, and with Cecily Tyson, this woman of great dignity and very specific in the roles that she chose. And what happened is I got back much more. I wasn't looking for anything, and there was no material thing or reward, but just it was an education. There was something I learned from each one of them. I learned from Mrs. Parks, about quiet strength and courage. She was such a courageous woman. That's why I was moved to speak out when I saw them trying to unravel her contribution to history and turning back the clock. Gordon Parks was such a phenomenal person, but he took time to come and work with students in the South Bronx. We named a gallery in honor of him. He framed a permanent collection of his work, so it was just blessings flowing from these people. And they've made such a contribution to the culture. You're talking about cultural caravan,
And I know we recently lost the great Cecily Tyson.
Yes.
I don't know if you wanted to share anything based on your interaction with her.
Well, I worked with her here in East Orange, New Jersey. Mm-hmm. There's a beautiful educational complex named for her, and I helped to be her contact in the opening, and just to sit and hear her talk about how she chose her work and how that in her work it's kind of like an arc of the history of the African American experience. it goes from roots during a period when Africans were enslaved here in America, all the way to, you know, when the woman went and sipped the water out of the colored white.
Miss Jane
Yeah,
Pittman.
Jane Pittman. Until, you know, until her death, she was still there, working and representing the experience with dignity. And what's so beautiful about all of these people is that not just African Americans benefit from their contributions, we all do. And I'd like for people to, you know, explore, you know, get more information. That's one of the reasons I wrote the book. I want people to become lifelong self-directed learners and reclaim the power that we've yielded to others over our education.
Now, I just want to take this moment to say, Sister Bessie, Dr. Blake, Dr. Bessie Waits Blake, I am forever basically inspired by your story, your strength, your example of African American womanhood, your example of strength, courage, and the importance of telling our story.
Yes.
And so I just want to say on behalf of Cultural Caravan, it's an honor and a pleasure to have an opportunity to speak to you and look forward to more opportunities in celebration of our collective story. And I just wanted to thank you so much for being with us.
And I thank you. I thank you. I'm just awed by the work that you're doing, and that you have done, and it's just a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much.
Commencer bouquet, pour que je la go cacher.